The gentleman from Lancaster, Mr. Pollard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise for an introduction and a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our prayer this morning was given by Reverend Ken Rioland from Macedonia Baptist Church in Heathsville. He's joined in the back by his lovely wife, Cynthia Rioland, who is also a co-pastor at Macedonia Baptist Church, and Reverend Wayne Ball, who's also a pastor. At Macedonia Baptist Church, they know that Jesus said to cast your nets upon the right side of the boat, and that he told his followers to be fishers of men. And Mr. Speaker, even though I knew, if we could please give them a warm house welcome.
Gentleman from Lancaster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, even though my personal mantra is to work twice as hard and to work twice as smart and to plan twice as far in advance, I have to say it's a coincidence that these friends are here for this point of personal privilege. When I first ran in 1999, Mr. Speaker, I said that it was my hope to serve a total of 6 to 10 years. My first time in the House of Delegates, I served for 6 years. And, Mr. Speaker, this cycle I've served for 4 years. And therefore, I will not be seeking re-election this fall. Now, I feel comfortable, Mr. Speaker, that I could win re-election. I've got 5 opponents in an August primary date. It keeps getting a little better every day. But you shouldn't run for office, Mr. Speaker, just because you can win. You run to serve. This is public service, Mr. Speaker, and I simply have no desire to make this my career. I've served now for 10 years, and my decision is really that basic. And, Mr. Speaker, since I didn't give a speech last time, I was wondering if I could make my speech twice as long this time. I have 3 pieces of advice, Mr. Speaker. It'll save the body time in the long run, I assure you. My first piece of advice, Mr. Speaker. We talk a lot down here about what the Constitution means, about constitutional powers and how far government should go, and what the proper role of government is. But throughout these conversations, Mr. Speaker, we really ignore what I consider to be the elephant in the room of a better republic. And the elephant in the room of a better republic, Mr. Speaker, in my mind, is the political parties in general and the caucuses specifically. Nowhere in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, are parties mentioned. And certainly the founders did not have caucuses in mind. And why are these bodies injurious to a better republic? Why are they the elephant in the room of a better republic? Well, because, Mr. Speaker, political parties and caucuses are as often about power as about doing what's right. Everyone here, and I'm guilty, Mr. Speaker, has seen their caucuses engineer a vote designed to embarrass, or engineer getting a bill killed so the other side doesn't get the credit, or killed a bill on retribution. And, Mr. Speaker, when we think about our Christian mission, when we think about our better republic, we think about forcing embarrassment, denying credit, retribution. These are not the words to a more perfect union. Indeed, the political parties which George Washington warned against. George Washington, born in my district, before he moved up to Stafford and then a little bit closer to the Beltway. These very political parties are what George Washington warned about and are never mentioned in our founding documents. My second piece of advice, Mr. Speaker, is unto the first. And this is to all the members here. Work the floor, work the floor, work the floor. As members of this body, Mr. Speaker, we are at a severe disadvantage compared to lobbyists. Just think about it. There are 8 lobbyists for every delegate. They have a half-dozen bills to work. We have twice that many. They have people hired on both sides of the aisle. And we handicap ourselves through our own political labels. They have spending accounts. We have none. They have a constituency of 1. We have many constituencies. We have other jobs. This is their job. They represent an interest, Mr. Speaker, which might include good public policy, but their duty is not to our constituents or to the free market. Their duty is to their client or to their shareholder. And so, Mr. Speaker, and I was talking to Delegate Clark Hogan about this just a few years ago on this floor, our best tool, really our only tool which we have, which others do not, is our time on this floor our time with our colleagues. In this chamber, we need to work our bills or try to kill other bills which aren't good public policy. And Mr. Speaker, I'd say that if you aren't maximizing your time on the floor when talking with your colleagues, working your bills, then you're ceding your elected authority to every other member and to every other lobbyist. If you aren't working your ideas, or if you're only talking to your own party, if you're only talking to your own caucus, then you're putting your ideas at a competitive disadvantage. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we work in the best building in the world. This Capitol, designed by Jefferson, inspired by Roman ideals, this is our office building. This Capitol is a monument to the American ideal that we can make the world a better place. And yet, Mr. Speaker, I would say that we pay it little respect. We exit so often through the steps. We scurry down through the catacombs, or scurry down through the basement like mice in the catacombs. So my final piece of advice is this, Mr. Speaker. Every now and then, I would say to members of this body, exit through the double doors. Walk through the rotunda, and don't walk on the north side of Washington, Mr. Speaker. Don't walk behind his back. Instead, walk at his feet. And walk at the feet of the other great Virginians. And if for only for a few moments, few fleeting moments every week, take a moment to reaffirm why we're here, what we are doing to fulfill our own faith and reason for being, and what we're doing to make the lives of everyday Virginians even better. I thank the body for their time.
The gentleman from Carolina, Mr. Rock.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman, may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, unlike the previous speaker who had some time to compose his thoughts, I stand in acknowledgement of the announcement that I must admit I grudgingly must accept, because it is with the utmost respect that any and all who have served with the gentleman from Westmoreland can say with great pride that he has truly epitomized the term gentleman, much in the same fashion as his predecessor, the gentleman, Mr. Taylor Murphy, who served this body ably for many, many years, and who has some relations, as I understand, the course of events. But, Mr. Speaker, I stand to commend the gentleman for his dedicated public service through all associations that I, and I know all members of this body, have had with the gentleman. They have been with the utmost of respect. He has always, while we may not have always agreed on the objective, or excuse me, the means, I should say, we've always had the common objective, and that being serving the citizens of our respective districts and the Commonwealth as a whole. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I know that I will miss the gentleman's service here. I treasure the future friendship that I know we will continue to enjoy. I wish him Godspeed to him and his family, and thank him for his tremendous service to the Commonwealth.
The gentleman from Henry, Mr. Armstrong.
Point of personal privilege.
The gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I learned of the gentleman's decision when he and I had a private dinner some 36 hours ago. I've been saddened by that news ever since then and was aware of his speech and what he was going to say today. His parting gift to me was a CD on the Constitution, which is much appreciated and most appropriate. There are some of us who are blessed with knowing when it's time to leave. Others of us, such as myself, will probably have to be told by the voters. But I say that this place will miss the gentleman's savvy, his nuance, his knowledge, his friendship. I'm not going to have a John Boehner moment here this day, but I do want to take this opportunity to tell the gentleman what a difference that his service has made, not just to this body or his district, but the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. This caucus will miss you, nay, this House of Delegates will miss you. Godspeed.
Gentleman from Gloucester, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Much like the gentleman from Caroline, I'm nonplussed. I had no idea that the gentleman was going to give his announcement. I had no idea that he was even thinking about it. But Delegate Pollard is my neighbor. His mother and father were friends before I even knew him. He has a legacy of public service. His grandfather was, I believe it was grandfather, not great-grandfather was governor of Virginia. And so public service is just part of his nature. And I think that kind of tradition has been revealed to us in the words that he left us with. All of us should take heed of the advice that Albert Pollard just gave to us. And I personally want to thank him and wish him Godspeed.
The gentlewoman from Alexandria, Ms. Herring.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Wow. I have to say I'm shocked. And, you know, and I go back to the story, Mr. Speaker, when, you know, Bruce called me 2 years ago to ask where I wanted to sit on the House floor. And he told me about the option of sitting between Delegate Dance and Delegate Pollard. And I said, well, that's great because it gives me some balance. And Delegate, your savviness, and needless to say, I chose a seat because of what both of you have given me. Just be patient with your legislation, and like you said, work the other side of the aisle. That's the only way that we can be successful. And your words that we do ourselves a disservice as legislators if we hang on and don't work our bills on the floor. You're exactly right. And so when you stood up initially to make your announcement, I was over at the Senate because I decided I would start with the Republican legislators first and getting my conference report done. So I'm going to be brief and just say I admire you so much. And I love the ice cream that we shared during those long sessions and the ginger ale that is just your ginger ale. So I thank you. And I thank you for your service and just all that you've given us.